So first, I want to thank the Drupal Austria organization for setting up the conference. It's been a really nice day. I know it's been pretty intense, and so it's the last talk, and I'm standing between you and beer, and so I really appreciate you being here, even more because of that. I'm going to be talking about Decoupled Drupal and our journey in Decoupled Drupal over the last 5 years at Jobiqo. My name is Joao. I'm the tech lead. I'm a tech lead at Jobiqo. I work on the product team. And basically, over the last 5 years, we've been transitioning our product, which is a SaaS application. So I'm all up for the Drupal for SaaS journey also. And we've been transitioning from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8 using Decoupled. So there's a lot of lessons that we've learned along the way. Now, Jobiqo, we make job boards. That's basically a site where recruiters go in, they post jobs. Applicants, on the other hand, can also log in. They apply for those jobs. If you're not really super familiar with the concept, I'm sure you know sites like Indeed, Glassdoor, Top Jobs, Stepstone, and so on. And so I'd like to start with a little bit of a step back and what was the business decision to go with Decoupled and what was some of the technical things we wanted to achieve with Decoupled. And so let's dive right in. 2013, I moved from Lisbon, where I'm originally from, to Vienna. And I worked in a company for about 1.5 years. And then 2015, in the beginning of 2015, I joined Jobiqo. And in the same year, it's already been that long, Drupal 8 was released in November. Between 2015 and 17, we didn't really work too much internally on Drupal 8, so we were still using Drupal 7, building a lot of sites in Drupal 7. And then in 2017, we really started thinking about, okay, what's going to be the transitioning to Drupal 8 for us? In 2018 is where we actually started working on Drupal 8. Between 2011, since the company has started in 2018, we talked a lot to our clients. They're telling us the things they like about the product, the things they want to see improved. And we talk a lot about interactivity, snappier UX, client-side transitions, no page reloads, the ability to adopt new UI patterns, which, of course, clients see in other sites. So in SaaS, you're really competing with other SaaSes. There's no medal for simplicity or things like that. You're basically competing on quality. And so the split screen was a trend that was introduced in the recruiting market and something our clients were pushing us towards a lot. Not only this one, but more. Mini-wise is a big topic in Drupal 7. We've tried a lot of modules, a lot of themes, custom modules, all kinds of things. And also APIs, of course. They have other systems. They want to integrate those systems into our system. They want to put things in. They want to take things out, the usual. But also there's a lot of things in the product that work really well. Performance worked really well. Accessibility worked really well. A lot of flexibility in the backend to deliver custom features and things like that. Localization, translations, all those things are things they are quite happy about. Now, in 2017 or 18, it's a while back, but if you remember, it's pretty difficult to have a conversation about Drupal 8 and not talk about Decoupled. It was really the elephant in the room, and in every conversation we had, we talked about it. And we heard everything the community was figuring out, talking about which framework works best with Drupal, which is the right one to use, which is the API flavor. Apparently, we still didn't really figure this one out yet. JSON API, GraphQL, REST, RESTful, all kinds of things. But then there's a bunch of things that they're not as talked about. If you think about commerce, payments, authentication, password reset flows, how do emails work, all those things are pretty much unknown territory. So we started prototyping in an attempt to really at least find solutions to some of these problems. So in 2018, in the summer, we did our annual company retreat, which we do every year. And basically in the company retreats, essentially, there's always a there's a strategic topic we want to really kind of collectively brainstorm. We bring everyone into a different area so we get out of our normal day-to-day scenario and work life, and we discuss strategic things about the company. And the new product was really the topic we had to talk about. We had to talk about the prototypes. What are the results of the prototypes? What are the things we found? What are the complex things? What are the things we have to solve? Which things are already solved? And so here we decided we were really going to make the new product in Decoupled. And we also decided the stack. The stack essentially was a mix of things we really knew very well and we have worked with for many years. So a bit of known and comfortable, and a bit of unknown and uncomfortable. And so it's essentially in the backend Drupal, which is our core. We have been a Drupal company since the beginning, and I think we will always be, with Solr and Search API. And then in the middle, we have GraphQL using the Drupal GraphQL module, which we help maintain. And in the front end, we use Next.js with React. Now, Next.js with React was not as trivial of a choice in this time as it is today, but it clearly was a good decision. And Next.js, I think most are familiar with, but it's a front-end framework built on top of React. But it does a lot of server-side things, which are very useful for us, because for job boards, SEO is a critical topic, as is performance and other things. So just to have more or less of a visual of what I'm talking about, I'm going to show very briefly one of our sites, which is viennajobs.at, which is appropriate since we are in Vienna. And here is the split screen, so it's basically a list of jobs on the left, and as you click on the jobs, the detail of the jobs are on the right side. And there's much more screens like this one, which are interactive, and you can see as I click, it immediately shows the job detail. It's pretty snappy, it's pretty fast, and it doesn't have all these reloads, which would bring you to the top of the page, and a lot of weird UX. So here I'm creating a job alert, which is also pretty immediate, bookmarking jobs so you can apply for them later, and so on. And there's a lot more interactivity like this spread out through the site. As you log in as a recruiter, you have job posting workflows for applicants. There's the resume, which is a very long set of forms, so editing those forms can also be pretty tricky. So today, in 2023, Jobiqo has, if this number, I think this number is kind of correct, but it's pretty much around here, 80 job boards. We have job boards in German, in English, in French, in Spanish. We have job boards in multiple languages, so multilingual sites. We have job boards that have one backend and one front end. Some have one backend and multiple front ends. So a wide variety of use cases that we're solving. And many of these are already in Drupal decoupled. Not all of them, but around maybe 30 or so. So let's dive through some of the things that we have that we had to navigate during this journey. And the first thing I would like to talk about is about baggage. We've been developing on Drupal since a very long time. Some of us have been developing before 2010, all the way from Drupal 4 or 5. And so it's really natural that we have preconceived ideas about how certain things should do, or what they should do, how they should be built, how long they should take to be built, and things like that. And so it's also really natural that some questions come up which can be a little bit uncomfortable. As you work on Decoupled, and especially in a complex product, you start having to build certain things that you think, well, I never really had to build this before. Really just used to enable a module and I would get this feature, so why do we really have to do this now? And there's a lot of this, but there's, I think really importantly, a lot of counterexamples to this, where things not only are faster, the end result is much better. And as I said in the beginning, in SaaS, you're really competing on quality. You're not competing on who developed the feature faster. The end user is basically comparing two sites and like, this one is clearly better, I'm going to use this one, that's it. Or price matters, of course, but usually users, like in this case applicants, they're really picking the best one, not the one that was faster because they don't even know. The second lesson is about time and about estimations. So we underestimated two things, and one of them I think is a bit easier to understand, which is we underestimated how much time it would take to develop this, of course. So this is pretty obvious. We're developers. We think things are simple, and then they are not. And we take more time. But we didn't really underestimate time, even, I would say. We underestimated the complexity. But the second thing I think is also interesting to highlight, which is that we underestimated how the business was going. And during the time that we had to develop this new product, a lot of clients are being onboarded. The business is going well, that's good. But this poses a challenge because at some point you're going to have to catch up. Okay, now you have feature parity, but you have a bunch of clients in one solution, you have a bunch of clients in another solution, and you're having to deal with this problem of moving and transitioning. So I think one thing that is worth considering if you're doing a project like this is there an option to progressively move customers from one version of the product to the other, so you're not like just developing in isolation and then, okay, how do we actually do this migration? Especially because we have clients with custom code, which becomes a lot difficult to find the transition. Well, what code do we merge? What code do we don't merge? It's quite difficult to solve. The third lesson is one that's very commonly associated with Decoupled, I think. It's about hiring and about talent pool and finding developers. So you'll hear a lot, or we would hear a lot in the beginning at least, that it's much easier to find JavaScript developers. You can find React developers. They are everywhere. It's going to be simple and fast, and it's going to be great. And I think for us, the question was not so much if that's the case. There's more developers of JavaScript than Drupal. That's probably right. But the bigger question, I think, is can really a JavaScript developer come to a Drupal company that has so much knowledge of Drupal, and Drupal is so ingrained in our culture that can they really be efficient, or are they just going to be banging on walls and trying to find answers to things they don't know because they don't know Drupal? And can they really bring value to a team of people that are experts in Drupal and they're like maybe the single person that doesn't know this framework? And for us, we really saw this as being true. We had people that don't know Drupal, and they are really efficient on the code base. Because landing on an Next.js code base similar to Drupal, there's a lot of opinions baked in, so you know where pages are, where the components are, those things, you get basically up to speed really quickly. And this was what happened with us, so that was really good. Now, looking at this, it might seem like, okay, so a JavaScript developer comes into a Drupal project and they are really efficient, so does that mean everything is done in JavaScript and we're not really using Drupal? And that's not the case at all. We do use a lot of Drupal, and I think we still take a lot of value out of Drupal. And we spend a lot more time in Drupal. We write a lot more code in Drupal. And the balance for the team that we found is kind of like one front-end developer to 3 back-end developers, because there's just a lot more to do in Drupal. Now, this didn't seem for a time really obvious. Like, why is this the case? You kind of assume that you're doing decoupled. Now, it's kind of half-half. So you're still doing things in Drupal, but a lot of it is going to move to the front-end. So why is this the case? And to explain this, I think, or the best way that I can explain this is to talk about the customer that we have, which is the person that operates the job board. The person that operates the job board basically lives in Drupal. They log into Drupal, they have to manage landing pages, taxonomies, meta tags for jobs and things like that, sitemaps. They have to set up feeds which import jobs and export jobs. They manage translations. There's a world of things they have to be able to do in Drupal. And for us, it was never really compelling that we would give this up by adopting decoupled Drupal. So this was something we had to keep. Like, they would still have to log into Drupal and do all of these things in Drupal. And so we know there's modules for authentication. There's modules that, obviously, Drupal core and other modules like commerce, they send emails and they go out, and it all works. Forms, landing pages, emails. But in Decoupled, at least so far, you can't really just install these modules and they just work, because they have implicit assumptions, or very explicit, I would say, about what kind of Drupal it's running. If you think about emails, you're doing a password reset. You say, okay, I want to reset my password. The email goes out with a link that points to the backend. Now, if you're an applicant, you really want to get to the job board, not to the backend. We don't even want it to go to the backend, right? So it's these little corners and nuances of Decoupled that can make you have to write a lot of code, or some code at least. And it's easy to ignore, but it's important to acknowledge that there is some complexity involved. There's complexity because there's more things to develop, and more things to develop means more bugs. There's more points of failure in Decoupled. Things can fail in the front end, things can fail in the API, and things can fail in the backend. There's caching that you have to figure out, and performance, and these are not always so simple. But again, it's all about the quality of the end product. These are not really justifications for having a lower quality product, because again, in SaaS world, people compare solutions, and that's it. They don't know if it's, if it was very quick. Oh, but this was done in a week, and this one was done in a month. It doesn't really matter. It's the best one that's going to win. And we can see that users via Hotjar and other services, that they're happy with the site. The site works, and the site is fast, and there's delight in using the site, which was not the case before, because it was kind of, the word was really used as dated a little bit, which is always ambiguous, but I think it gives the point. Number 7 in the lessons that we've learned in this journey is that in something like this, the person that's advocating for this project has to really have influence inside the company. Because there will be times where things are difficult, as you're learning, as you're having to build things, you're moving forward, you figure out there's problems, you go back, you have to redo, because you're really, at some point, there's meetings where it seems like nobody knows, like really, none of the developers know the solution, which is quite exciting in a way, because those conversations are really good, and they have really a lot of good nuance and good takes, but we make mistakes, and that's what happens. Fortunately, we have people that were in front of the project, believing in the project, sometimes when even many of the people around didn't. And so this for us, I think, was really crucial. And if you have a complex product and you're doing a transition like this, I think it's worth considering the person that's advocating for this product. Will they really be able to push through in the moments that a lot of people will be questioning? This was a key factor, I think, in the success of this project. Another point that I take is about testing and documentation. So because there's a lot of unknowns, and we have teams working on the solution in Drupal 7, we work with teams working on Decoupled, and from time to time, there's more projects. The newer projects are more and more Drupal Decoupled. People have to be onboarded. That means they have to work, but they need time to figure out things. And so there's things like testing. It was clear for us that we had to level up our testing, and we need to have a really good testing strategy. But I think it's even more important was the documentation efforts that we did in the beginning, and that we keep doing, because doing them from the beginning really makes a difference. And also, I think that there's many people that work in this project and are not in the company anymore, and they go to other companies, they go to other projects. And I think when you get the value of testing and good documentation and good onboarding experience, it's something you bring with you wherever you go. And this is something I think we, as a company, take a lot of pride in, that developers are growing in this kind of projects. So there's no doubt in my mind that a normal Drupal, typical Drupal, monolith Drupal, whatever you want to call it, is very compelling. Some of the patterns in there, they're just so useful. They're easy, they're simple, everything knows about everything. And I think the more you work on Decoupled, the more you value those things, which is also good, because then you can really have balanced discussions. And so it's easy to also get really hung up on those patterns and not open your mind to embracing new things. Things like build time, just the build in general is a concept that really trips people out. It's difficult because you're thinking like, why do I have to wait for a minute for this thing to compile? And depending how you approach these things, you can look at it as an annoyance, or you can see that there's a lot of potential for benefits in it. It is a minute that will save your users a lot of time every time they load the page. So it's a very precious minute. Other things like even static optimization, which can leave you thinking like, really, static, is that, why is that suddenly good? Like, why do I have to, I don't know, get the menus, the footer, the header in my build time? But you can also think like, why am I making users load these things all of the time when you change menus maybe once every 6 months? And every time they go, they have to fetch the menus. That also seems... So depending what kind of mindset you bring to the project, it can really influence how you see things. So opening your minds and letting go of a little bit of some preconceived notions can go a long way. And this is definitely an ongoing effort. This is not something that even we have nailed completely. We have definitely not. And it's a constant thing. I think adopting new frameworks, learning new languages is something that really opens your spectrum in your worldview. And there's a lot of good things being done in different frameworks that you can then also bring to Drupal and make Drupal also better. And the last lesson, the 10th lesson, and I think I'm on time, is about upgrades. It's not really about upgrades in terms of a major version or whatever, but it's really about upgrades to the product, making the product better every week, every 2 weeks, whatever the sprint or whatever you use. Because we use two different frameworks, if I think about the frameworks or the components that we use, so Next.js on the front end and Drupal on the back end, I look at their roadmaps, the things they're working on, the things they're focusing on, they're wildly different. Next.js is focusing on, I don't know, statically optimizing components, optimizing fonts, images, a lot of things in terms of performance, developer experience for front-end developers to build UIs. Drupal, on the other hand, is bringing a whole other world of benefits. Just the admin UI, which I mentioned in the beginning. We use Claro and Gin, which are amazing and incredible things that we just get. So we're getting benefits left and right out of these pieces because basically we have the two best combined together. I think of it a little bit, it's maybe a silly analogy, but if you think about a soccer team or a football team, you're not picking like people that can do, they can score goals, they can defend, they can attack. That's not how the best teams are made. The best teams are made out of specialized people combined together and put together into a team. And products, I think, are very similar. You combine the best pieces, put them together, and those usually they deliver the best product. And so basically, for us, it feels like we're just getting benefits into the product, and we're just kind of getting this as we upgrade Drupal to a major version, upgrade Next to a minor or major version, and we're just getting benefits left and right. And it's good. And again, it's all about the end product. It's all about the quality. So there's costs to Decoupled. It's not for free, meaning it's not always easier, it's not always simpler, but also comparing just the difficulty of development or the simplicity is not always the best metric. Quality plays a huge factor. So that's all that I have. And as I say, you should do things in a simple way, but not the simplest way. And yeah, thank you. If you have questions, I think we have 5 minutes. I just want to say, please stay in touch with Drupal Austria, all the events that you're doing now, but also in the future. And also, please visit the sponsors. Without them, there would be no dev days. So go up there, get some t-shirts, get some stickers, shout out to Twitter and Threads and whatever they're hanging. Thanks. I think we have maybe 5 minutes for questions. You dropped.
Thank you. A very, very interesting presentation. You mentioned that you had one front-end developer for 3 back-end developers. Is that a balance that you expect to change? And what do you think needs to happen within Drupal or the front-end ecosystem for that to change?
I think it's more like the state as it is now. There's definitely room for improvement, I think, within the Drupal. I'd say like the Drupal decoupled ecosystem, to put it in this way. If we get more synergies, there's less things that you have to develop, especially in the beginning, because now a lot of these things we have built. They are working, but we definitely spend times on things that other teams are spending time on, because I'm talking to them here in the conference, and I know they're also doing it, and they're doing it in a kind of similar but a little different way. Each of us are basically doing the same thing, but in slightly different ways. And if that works more out of the box, meaning if Drupal becomes, I think, truly more API first, then there's less work of that kind. That simplifies things, and then it might balance out a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe to add on to that, I think in our case, in the Jobiqo case, is this relationship of 3-to-1 backend and frontend is because stuff that looks simple in the UI that you can do with one click triggers quite a lot of workflows and quite a lot of stuff on the backend. So I think it's kind of a workflow issue. And those workflows are modeled in the backend in our case. So that's what is happening. You click the apply button and then an email is sent out. The application is stored there. It shows up in some screen, whatever is happening in the backend, and that takes development time simply. Yeah. So I think we're doing a good job making a simple UI, hiding a lot of complex workflows, and then there's more work for the backend developers.
Yeah, and I think also, like I've said, our main customer really is the person that's there on Drupal, and so choosing Auth0 combined with Shopify or this or that, that's not an option. It's just not. They can't log into multiple systems and manage things. They have to manage things in Drupal. So we have to do them in Drupal, which we also want to do them in Drupal. So there's something to that.
If it's appropriate to ask a technical question.
Oh, sure.
So
yeah.
You said that this advantage that you can update both systems separately, and then if you use GraphQL, then how you handle the versioning of GraphQL? It's like just interesting. Yeah. If you add, for example, a new field in Drupal or change the field type in Drupal or, I don't know, change name of the field, how then the Next.js handles it? If you, for example,
so in GraphQL, basically you define a schema, and you can also, so it's basically there's something called types. Let's say in our case, there's a type called job, and the job has several things inside, so those are called fields. And if we change one, we can deprecate the old one, and so we control the client, so that's something that we have. These APIs are not, at least not always, exposed to clients directly. So we communicate as a team and say, hey, I'm going to change this field. Either we change it immediately, or if there's something more complex, we can deprecate the old field, make a new one, and then as time goes on, eventually we remove the old one. And
so you don't really deal that multiple versions of the same GraphQL exist?
No. No, the GraphQL module also allows you to do something else, which is to create different servers, yes.
And so then the question,
that would be enough.
Version of the module are you using?
For the text.
For the text. And
yes,
do you use any
we have used both.
Compose.
So, yeah.
Like
I mean, we started with 3 and then we...
No, I mean, like, do you use something to create your schema automatically? Or you just always write it in this?
No, we create the schema automatically. Then what we do, for example, for the front end is we use something called GraphQL CodeGen, and that generates the TypeScript types. So if someone does change a type in and doesn't tell anyone, for example, that will immediately break in CI and say, like, this is not working. Like,
thank you.
All right, then, thanks a lot. Thank you.